Hey, it's Jessica DeMassa with WTF Health. What's the future of health? I'm talking to the who's who of health tech and healthcare innovation. And joining me today, I have Aaron Gani. He is the founder and CEO of RealizedCare, which is a brand new entity formed out of the merger of BehaVR, which is a virtual reality mental health digital therapeutics company, and Fern Health, which was a digital health chronic pain management platform. And now together, RealizedCare. So we're going to get into this merger today and also the sexy subplots of what this means for the digital therapeutics category, which has had a pretty hard time lately. So Aaron, thank goodness you are here.
Thanks for having me, Jessica. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. So let's dig into this merger first. I want to hear about what happened here because really interesting. I mean, you guys have always been, a leading BehaVR has always been a leading VR company in a space that's been kind of, a lot of people very interested in that technology and how it's been applied. And now you're adding in this chronic pain management, which is a huge market, chronic pain management component with Fern Health. So talk to me a little bit about the merger and what this means, what's RealizedCare going to do?
Yeah, so this was born out of a strategic shift that started around the first of this year at our board level. We've been building at BehaVR virtual reality-based wellness programs and digital therapeutics for about 5+ years now. We've figured out a whole lot about how to create, engaging, effective, safe products really based in the mechanisms of action that work and matter from a VR perspective. But like essentially all digital therapeutics companies, we're really running up against the challenges of getting adoption and getting paid, right? And so that can only go on so long, and you have to find better ways. And so we knew broadly that the fundamental problems that digital therapeutics are best positioned to address, like there aren't enough clinicians in the world, there's not enough access, the clinicians we do have are getting more and more expensive. We need ways to improve the operating economics of care delivery organizations. All those problems still exist. And we think digital therapeutics are going to be a huge part of solving for those problems. But what we need to do is take these digital therapeutics and lean them into care management and care delivery so that we can just become part of innovative delivery models that are driving real value for patients and sponsors like payers, employers, et cetera, right? So when we made that shift at the strategic level, that returned my focus to how do we accelerate that transition? We could build all those capabilities of, sort of coaching platform and coaching protocols and care management protocols and all those things. We could do that, but that stuff's not easy. It's going to take a lot of time and money. We had gotten to know Fern Health and their parent company, Grunenthal, which is a German pharma company, over the last several years. We had talked on and off over the years about partnering up on digital therapeutics development. We have another pharmaceutical partner, Sumitomo Pharma, out of Japan. And so I had approached Grunenthal, and we were talking about maybe collaborating in the chronic pain space. That didn't lead anywhere at the time, but we had built this relationship with Grunenthal and Fern. When we made that strategic shift and said, okay, we're going to really lean into innovative sort of transformation of care delivery, it made a lot of sense to look at putting the companies together. And so that's what we've done. It's really unlike our Oxford VR deal, which you remember from sort of late last year. Yeah, in that case, it was like they did just what we did, but they did it in disease states that we weren't in SMI. So it was VR, digital therapeutics. In the case of Fern, it's much more complementary. We had the therapeutics, they had sort of the care management platform and the coaching protocols and the clinical partnerships. So it made a lot of sense to bring those companies together so that we can actually get the traction we need to get in the market, have the impact on care delivery and the scalability and the economics of care.
Aaron, there's like so many like little storylines in here that we have to unpack. So,
Okay.
So let's go piece by piece. Let's start with the pharma company, because that to me is like a sexy part of this, is that you have Grunenthal involved. They are the parent company of Fern. And now the relationship, from what I understand, is that they're one of the major investors in RealizedCare. What else can you tell us about that relationship? Like, are they going to be hands-on, hands-off? Like, what does this look like? Because I think, as you were saying, in terms of evolving the digital therapeutics model, like within the that category, getting paid is really important. And I think everybody has traditionally looked to being partnered up with a pharma as the way to get paid. Like, can you make the digital portion of this be something that wraps around a pill? So tell me a little bit about what you guys are looking at here with Grunenthal in the mix. What's that relationship going to be like? And are you guys going to pursue that around the pill approach, or are you going to continue to provide more standalone digital therapeutics like you have been?
Yeah, well, time will tell how it all evolves. But I'll tell you broadly, in the case of Sumitomo Pharma, who's been our partner now for many years, back to around 2019, and now our new partner at Grunenthal, in both cases, what they bring to the mix that we are most excited about is their sort of research and scientific capabilities, right? Around thinking deeply about how our brains and bodies work, what are the mechanisms of action available to us in these digital modalities that we can sort of translate into digital experiences, right? Taking those evidence-based, whether it's cognitive behavioral protocols or movement-based protocols, the sort of the neurological aspects, and translate that into something that is meaningful, engaging, and effective. We are most excited about having their assistance with the science, the development processes, the regulatory expertise, even more so than sort of market access and reimbursement.
Cool.
It's not that we wouldn't welcome their help in that regard, but let's be honest. Collectively, pharma companies and digital therapeutics companies haven't really solved that market access and reimbursement issue, right? So we don't view these pharma partnerships as mostly about the commercialization. We view it about mostly the science, the research, the regulatory aspects. And we're really excited about that partnership.
I like that. And that is different than what we have typically seen among digital therapeutics companies. Like you said, a lot of times they have been looked at, the pharma company, as a means to gain market share and a way to get paid. And so looking at them more from the strategic standpoint, almost on the like DTX development side, is a different approach. And I think that's interesting. I'm excited to see how that ferrets out. Talk to me a little bit about Oxford VR and that merger there too, because to me, when I'm looking at your story, it's the behavior story, right? Like over the last 2 years, it's like you guys made this merger, like you said, of a business that looked very similar to yours, focused on the VR, the digital therapeutic, but in a different disease area. And now here we are with Fern Health, and it's like we're adding that care management. I mean, their platform has access to clinicians and coaches and different things like that. So back up for us and talk about the Oxford VR merger and like how that has integrated into behavior. And then let's talk again about, what kind of how that draw that line all the way through to now adding this more care delivery focused, like just, I guess, add on to what you already have built from a digital therapeutic standpoint.
Yeah, happy to do that. So in the case of Oxford, there were a few things we were excited about. At the core was this asset, Game Change, which was developed by the Oxford VR team, co-founded by Dr. Daniel Freeman at Oxford University. He's the chair of experimental psychology at Oxford. So a renowned, scientist in the field of psychosis and paranoia. So really strong on the science front. A well-designed product with large-scale randomized control trials in the UK. It was an extension of our pipeline. So whereas we were working on products in chronic pain, anxiety, depression, opioid use disorder, we were not in the serious mental illness sort of range in mental and behavioral health, but it fit with our model of looking to build therapeutics across this mental and behavioral health spectrum of conditions. So great product with great scientific underpinnings. We were also very excited about their investors. Optum Ventures was a lead investor in Oxford VR and now in RealizedCare. Oxford Science Enterprises, which sort of always takes the lead on spin-outs from Oxford University. So exciting investors, exciting product, and a foothold in the UK. That has translated most recently. Our news kind of got overshadowed a little bit by our RealizedCare news because the timing just worked out that way. But just a couple of weeks ago, it became public and that we've been formally notified by the NHS in the UK. Game Change is now approved for deployment with patients living with psychosis or schizophrenia and severe agoraphobic avoidance. This is funded by NIHR in the UK, supported for clinical deployment for evidence generation over the next several years. So we'll be scaling that up in the UK, which we're really excited about.
Awesome. That's great news. That's big news in BTX land here. That's big news.
It is. This whole DTX space, right? It's on the one hand, it feels really slow moving, but it's happening. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, I think it's finding its way. And it's like this last year has been tough. I mean, we've seen Akili, we've seen Pear. I mean, there have been a lot of challenges in this space. So it's interesting to hear how this is working. And I think there's definitely, from what I understand, and even, being over in Europe just recently, there's a big market for that. There's still appetite among incumbent organizations for supporting this type of technology that provides high level quality care, clinically proven out, and does it asynchronously without using a doctor. Like, there is still room for this in the market. So it's exciting that you're seeing that as well, and that you're receiving that kind of validation from the NHS. I wanted to ask you bring up the payment model. So let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about what you're going to do with RealizedCare, because I mean, obviously Fern has a very different model than what you're doing here with Game Change and Oxford VR. So what is the business model going to look like, the go-to-market strategy for what you're going to bring out of RealizedCare? I mean, I saw that you're going to be selling directly to employers, payers, and value-based care providers. So that to me is more like that population health management road. But tell me, is that the path you're going to go down, or will you look to pursue, coverage, from payer organizations, particularly abroad? I mean, there's still very much, a lot of conversation about the DIGA in Germany and supporting digital therapeutics there and expanding that idea to other European countries. Where do you land on the reimbursement model, specifically with what you're building?
Yeah. So broadly, I think that to the extent that digital therapeutics is going through a tough time right now, right, in different settings, there will be people sort of lamenting the state of the market. Is it still on track? Is it going to be okay? I view it a little differently. I think we went through an early stage, and no one company was probably more influential in this than Pear, but they weren't alone. Certainly there was Akili, MedRhythms, there were others. We were a small part of this compared to those guys, saying, look, we can collectively learn about this net new approach for using digital to create something that's actually therapeutic, right? It's not just supporting care. It's not just analytics or EMRs or telehealth or things that wrap around care. It becomes the care, right? You can swap human time for this digital thing. That was sort of the major breakthrough of, to me, the last, let's call it 10 years in digital therapeutics. Unfortunately, what wasn't working out was the assumed business model that went with that. I think what's healthy about the transition now, there were too many people not being critical enough about separating this notion of there's this net new thing. There are regulatory pathways to prove that they're safe and effective. That sort of became synonymous with, and they will be prescription therapeutics, and they will be reimbursed on a fee-for-service basis, right? And all we need is sort of codes and a little bit of magic in Washington, D.C., and everything's going to be good. Now people have sort of realized that while it may happen over the long term, it's going to happen at different speeds and sort of, paces in different geographies and different countries. And it won't apply uniformly across disease states or across countries. The problem digital therapeutics can solve are fundamentally clinical, but then you have to be solving some business problem to get paid to do anything, right? And the business problems we need to solve are going to be, there's going to be more diversity. So not speaking as an expert, just as an admirer from afar, if I look at what Akili did, they're solving a problem that probably doesn't cost payers a lot of money, but for consumers, for individuals living with ADHD, it's a big problem. They're willing to pay out of their pocket for what Endeavor can do for them. That makes perfect business sense, right? There are other opportunities, and what RealizedCare is leaning into is looking at high-cost chronic populations, starting most notably with chronic pain, which was our most advanced, sort of mature DTX asset, and what Fern Health is best at. Chronic pain patients, there's a lot of them. They cost payers and employers a lot of money, and there are not a lot of good solutions for them. So if we can lean into that and create something more accessible, really scalable, with better unit economics and better outcomes, now we're solving not only a clinical problem, but we're solving a business problem for those payers, employers, value-based providers. And that's one example. I'm not suggesting that model is right for everybody or for every disease state, But what's healthy about this new phase we're in is different companies, depending on which clinical sort of, which disease state they're going after, they're starting to be, I think, collectively more thoughtful about the diversity of different business models available to us.
Yeah, the tough part about that is that it takes time to figure that out, right? Time,
Yeah.
resources, and so it's like where we're at now. I think is an interesting inflection point in kind of that in the category of digital therapeutics as it's starting to really find its way. But looking at your story, like I said, I mean, from a merger that brought in a different set of disease categories to address to now augmenting on with a more end-to-end kind of platform. It's interesting to see how your own model has evolved to make that product market fit really be valuable to who you're selling to. So I think that's
and another sort of example of that, Jess, is in the UK with Game Change. Part of the process that the NHS and NICE went through for evaluating the product and ultimately getting us this approval, they didn't primarily, yes, they approached it from like a fundamental, does it work clinically, is it safe? That was sort of step one. What really got it over the hump, though, was it solves a problem with access to therapeutic techniques and an automated exposure therapy to address that agoraphobic avoidance that gets in the way of people with schizophrenia and psychosis engaging in society and engaging in primary care, right? So it's about solving a societal and an access to care problem, not just, oh, this thing works and drives an endpoint that's clinically meaningful, therefore we're going to pay for it. And I think we all need to be thinking that way about solving a particular problem that's valuable to somebody, to whoever your ultimate buyer is.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the future. Like, get your crystal ball out for us. Let's talk first about the future of the category. Like, let's talk about digital therapeutic, because I feel like you've said a lot right here about what has changed and kind of where we're at now. So what do you looking ahead now at the helm of this much bigger enterprise, RealizedCare, when you're looking at the digital therapeutics category, do you feel like regulators, bodies like the NHS, folks, here, in the States, do you feel like payers, employers, that they understand, like, where are they at in terms of their understanding of what a digital therapeutic can offer? And where do you see this going in the near term? Let's say the next year or two, because that's kind of where everybody's runway is at right now.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I'll oversimplify a little bit, right? So if the era that we just came through was primarily about solidifying the regulatory frameworks that these digital things can become, validated, right? And by various health technology assessment bodies, right? Like the FDA and others in other countries. That was phase one. Phase two is we have the opportunity to address problems that are huge in their scale and impact, where there aren't a lot of other good solutions, right? And I mentioned them a few minutes ago, particularly in mental and behavioral health, which is where most of what's happening in digital therapeutics is focused, not all, but most of. Not enough clinicians, huge issues with access to care. The mental and behavioral health of our population is basically bad to worse. And where there is care getting delivered, it's often not being done in a way that's economically sustainable. I mean, care delivery organizations are struggling to recruit, and when they do recruit and deliver care, they're losing money. So we're going very much in the wrong direction. I think digital therapeutics in the broadest sense, the big opportunity is to start moving care delivery from humans to something that only digital can do, which is basically scale without limits. The more you use it, the cheaper it gets, right? So we can transform the accessibility, the scalability, the economics of care. When digital starts to transform the means of production in any given industry, that's when things really, really get dramatic in how they change. We're still, that transformation is still ahead. And I think we're right on the cusp of actually starting to demonstrate that. What we and a few companies like us are having to do, though, as opposed to sort of facing this incredibly steep uphill battle to educate, let's call them the incumbent care delivery organizations about this new model, we have to sort of find the innovative ones, yes, and then even kind of become them, right? So that's where we're leaning in with care management initially, not care delivery yet, to say, look, we can deliver more of an integrated solution where it's not just the DTX, it's companion apps and it's coaching and it's community and it's care navigation, and we can drive outcomes in a population while throwing off a lot of the capacity constraints and the economic constraints that were getting in the way before. So it's going to be massive in terms of its ability to finally scale up to meet the need and help the number of people that need this help, while really getting exciting in terms of changing the economics of how you scale an organization like that.
I love that. I'm optimistic still on this category. I know a lot of folks aren't, but I still am. I believe in the ultimately we will have a blockbuster DTX, just like we would have blockbuster drugs.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about RealizedCare then and what's next. And I know this is early days here, but I'm sure you've thought about it. You can't imagine you haven't. So like what happens with RealizedCare moving forward? And let's start in the short term. So like, I mean, you guys in the market with different pieces of this chronic pain management platform. How, like, tell us what the roadmap looks like in terms of tying that together. What's the patient experience going to look like on that? Like, how quick are you going to be in market with this whole end thing? And then what happens next?
Yeah. So remember the strategic sort of argument for this combination was that the companies are very complementary, right? So what Fern brings is coaching protocols and platform and companion app and a lot of the infrastructure that it takes to do care management with an emphasis on chronic pain. Chronic pain is our most mature asset. So the combo of Fern and what was BehaVR, we're emphasizing that care management offering in chronic pain first. But we're also careful to point out it's chronic pain and beyond. So we also have this pipeline of other indications that we've been working on for mental and behavioral health. So with Sumitomo Pharma, we've been working on social anxiety disorder, major depression. We've got an opioid use disorder in phase 2 that's funded by NIDA. We've got Game Change so far in the UK, but with an FDA breakthrough device designation here in the US. And there are other opportunities. We can't do everything at once, but we've got this robust pipeline of mental and behavioral health as well as chronic pain. So what we are going to do is scale up in the very near term with most of our focus on chronic pain for this care management platform to, again, payers, self-insured employers, and value-based providers. And then we're going to sort of rinse and repeat that model to meet more of the unmet need around broader mental and behavioral health conditions. And we think, the fundamental innovation is still that digital therapeutic, the transformation finally of care from humans to digital. But with this wrapper and with the right business model, we're actually going to be able to reach more people and actually get paid for what we're doing, which is obviously an essential, step in this process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. No, and that then helps, bolster not only, RealizedCare and what you're doing there, but, that whole category as well. So it's exciting to see how that happens. Do you think, will you follow along that? It sounds like you're very much committed to expanding that mental health pipeline. Any other designs to follow? Because now that you've got you got a pharma company with tramadol on your board, any following along with their pipeline? I took a look at what they had that's in development. They've got quite a lot of pain management stuff that's in dev. So how does that net out? Can you say anything about that?
Well, not to brag, but we have 2 pharma companies on our board, actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, as well as Optum Ventures, and a lot of our roots really though are in managed care. My years at Humana, folks like Senator Bill Frist, David Jones Jr. from the Humana board, we've got a lot of people that really understand managed care, value-based care, and that's a critical part of getting to the right business model, we think, particularly in the near to medium term, right? In a fee-for-service world, if you get paid for the amount of time you spend with a patient, and now I make you spend, or I make you able to spend less time with the patient, you're getting paid less. So there's an economic misalignment, right? In a value-based world, you want to reach the most patients you can with the best outcomes at the lowest cost. That's where digital can thrive. So we'll continue on the development of that pipeline. We've been about mental and behavioral health from day one.
Yeah.
The origin of that, Jess, came, I mentioned my Humana days, back in 2016, when I founded BehaVR, we were getting more and more focus on mental and behavioral as really the meta comorbidity that while they're bad in their own right, they make all of the chronic conditions that we're trying so hard to manage, that eat up 85% of all our healthcare dollars. They make all those chronic conditions harder to manage.
Yep.
And so it is an absolutely huge need with a potential to unlock value that is literally in the multiple trillions of dollars just in the US. So when you can shift from, I'm repeating myself a bit, from humans have to deliver all the care to now you can actually digitize the care. And if you can put it in a model, a business model where the economic, misalignments are removed, we think that just creates a huge amount of growth opportunity, fundamentally because we're going to be able to reach a lot of people who need a lot of help. So that's enough for us. We won't go outside of mental and behavioral health anytime soon.
Awesome. Well, we will keep our eye on RealizedCare. And Aaron, thank you so much for my new favorite buzz phrase, meta comorbidity. Like, what's that? I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. I mean, that is an excellent label to apply to the myriad mental health disorders that do layer on top of a lot of different diseases. So I've never heard that word before. I love it. I'm taking that. So thank you for that. And congratulations again on the merger between BehaVR and Fern. I mean, this is exciting. It's exciting to see this happen for you guys. And it's exciting to see this happen within the digital therapeutic space and also for virtual reality in healthcare. I mean, I feel like there's not enough VR. Like that's become like the subplot here. Like what?
Yeah.
But that you guys were among the first. So congratulations on that as well. It's a pleasure to hear what's going on. You'll have to check in with us and let us know how it's going.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jess. It's great to see you and appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing and hopefully help others in the space.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Aaron. It's a pleasure to hear from you. And if you guys out there want to hear more from those who are changing the way that we do healthcare, you can head on over to my YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/WTF Health. I'm Jessica DeMassa. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Bye.